Out there? Yes, clear. So loud and clear.
Good evening, and welcome to Tales from Perdition. This is Angel's Tale, Chapter 1, The Patrol. 5 years after the lights appeared in the sky, 5 years after the major cities became ruins, the world has changed. The world that natural science can explain is gone. We are aliens to our own planet. It was about midday. The patrol seemed to be going just fine for Riona so far. She sat in an olive drab Humvee, the interior jostling slightly as it braved the bumpy roads along the hazard zone. Old northwestern logging roads now used to get from checkpoint to checkpoint by PMCs and what remained of the military. The Humvee in front of them kicked up dust as it rumbled forward. Riona looked out at the passenger side window of the half-overgrown chain-link fence. "Hey, some real shit?" From behind her, one of the newer PMCs piped up. Riona looked over her shoulder at him. "What's up?" she responded. "So, why do we only have a little chain-link fence to stop a bunch of horrific entities?" Riona chuckled softly. "That's the thing, kid. It's not supposed to. At least, not the big things." "Then why not replace it with something stronger?" He furrowed his brow at the mention of the larger entities. "Well, last time we tried getting some barbed wire from Amazon, a bunch of our guys lost kidneys. Guess barbed wire is expensive," she snorts. The young PMC nods in agreement, his face losing a bit of its color. To Riona, this kid looked no older than 19. Riona tries to give him her best reassuring smile. "Don't look so dour, kid. Most of the nastier things like to stay in the hazard zone anyways. It'll mostly just be small fry for us anyways." The kid's face returned to its usual color, and it seemed like her words resonated well, at least. The front Humvee drew to a stop, the second one shortly following in suit. "Looks like we got something. Alright, let's go check it out, guys," the Humvee driver announces to the rest of the passengers. Riona nods and does a quick double check to make sure everything's in order. She exits out the Humvee and unslings her rifle. Some of the other PMCs from the first Humvee were gathered around a section of the fence. Riona walked over with her rifle aimed at the ground. The convoy commander turned to look at Riona. "Hey, Angel, come take a look at this." He motioned for her to walk over as he stepped aside to allow her a spot into the circle. Of course, he called her by her call sign. Standard practice for being near hazard zones and all. Riona finally got a good look at what stopped the convoy. A medium-sized hole had been punched through the fence. The chain links had been forced apart by something that obviously wanted to get in. "What do you reckon?" the convoy commander asked her. "Call it in," Riona shrugged, not sure why he was asking her of all people. He nodded and tapped his radio push-to-talk. "Yankee to Sentry, how copy, over?" The radio crackled and a static-filled voice responded. "Reading you, Yankee, go ahead." "We got a breach in the wire on Route X-ray, over." "Understood. Patch up the hole and comb the area, over." "Wilco, Sentry. Yankee out." Yankee made eye contact with Riona and nodded. "Well, you heard him. Establish perimeter while we patch up the fence. Angel, you think you could repost that fence?" "Shouldn't be a problem," she shrugged as she slung her rifle over her shoulder and motioned for the young PMC to help remove the new fence from the back of the Humvee. The rest of them established a perimeter as they worked to replace the broken fence. Each of them held their rifle close, scanning the tree line for any sign of movement from inside. It didn't take long. It was a simple enough fix for her. Riona gave Yankee a thumbs up as she jostled the post for any give, but found it to barely move in its place. "Alright guys, let's go in the woods. Don't wander off. We don't want to be here past dark. Well, most of us." Yankee's gaze settled on Riona, earning a few chuckles from the others. which also earned an eye roll from Riona. They formed a standard sweep formation, each of them within sight of each other. They walked as quietly as they could through the woods, making sure to pay attention to every little sight and sound of the forest. Their combat boots crackled dry leaves as they continued to comb the area for any signs of activity. "Shit, I see something," one of the PMC's whisper yells to the man next to him, who relayed it to Yankee. "Angel and..." He thought for a moment. He scanned around him for any volunteers. Of course, he found none. His gaze settled on the young PMC. "Angel and Raptor, go take a look. We'll cover you." Riona nodded and patted Raptor's shoulder, snapping him out of tunnel vision. "Come on, kid." He nodded and followed her towards what they found. They both walked towards a particular tree, their weapons at the ready, scanning around them. A drop of blood fell on top of Riona's helmet, running down to her visor. They both looked up to see a horrific sight. Hanging from one of the branches of the cedar trees was a deer's corpse. Its pelt was completely flayed from its body. It hung from its back legs from the branches. It had been completely disemboweled. Its guts hung partially from its stomach, swaying in the gentle breeze. Flies buzzed around the dozed corpse in the mid-afternoon sun. The stench of metal and offal was in the air. "I think I'm gonna be..." Raptor held his mouth, turning away and started to empty his stomach on the ground. Riona wrinkled her nose at the smell, and she was glad she had an empty stomach. Although she probably would still have this on her mind during her next meal. That she certainly didn't look forward to. Riona sighed and turned to Raptor after he had finished. "Go back over to Yankee and at least drink some water," she said, with a hint of concern in her voice as she watched Raptor relayed what they found to their convoy commander. Riona took a closer look at the carcass. It looked only to be a few hours old at most by her guesses. She noticed Yankee walk over next to her. "Quite a sight, huh?" She nodded in agreement. It's pretty fresh too." Yeah, not even any discoloration yet. Whatever did this should still be around." They both walked back to the rest of the group. "Surprised no carrion birds haven't tried pecking at it." Riona mentions to Yankee, who simply shrugs in reply. "Who knows? Maybe someone on R&D will know the answer to that. Anyways, let's shut up shop here to see if our predator wannabe will come back to feed on his kill." The rest of them all concealed their positions by hiding in shrubs and bushes. They waited for what felt like hours until they were about to give up until they saw a shape climbing up the trunk of the tree. Riona squinted to get a better look at it. The creature appeared to resemble a praying mantis, obviously extremely large in size and mutated from the hazard zone. It looked to be about 5 feet tall. It climbed onto a neighboring branch to the deer corpse. With one of its bladed arms, it deftly sliced off one of the front legs and began chewing on it. The convoy's auto riflemen zeroed in on the mutated insect and squeezed the trigger. A torrent of automatic fire spewed out at the creature. The rest of the convoy began to open fire as well. Round after round impacted on its carapace as it screeched and fell out of the tree, onto the ground, laying motionless. They all waited for a few moments, but it remained motionless. Each one of them walked towards the motionless mutant. "Alrighty, let's bag this one up, take it R&D. The others pulled security as Raptor took out a body bag for the creature. As he unfolded the body bag, a distant screech could be heard in the distance. Raptor turned his head to look at the approximate direction where it came from. It didn't seem to be from any direction he could really determine. He heard what sounded like a shallow whirring from the creature below him. Raptor's eyes became pinpricks. He unclipped his holster and drew his sidearm. He felt bladed arms stab into his vest, knocking the wind out of him but not piercing. He fell onto his back. He screamed at it as it slashed his leg, ripping apart flesh and cloth. He gritted his teeth and fired 2 rounds into it. It screeched but did not relent. Yankee aimed his rifle at the confrontation, but could not get a clear shot without a high risk of accidentally hitting Raptor in the crossfire. He swore under his breath. He felt powerless, as did the rest of the convoy, all barring one exception, Riona. Riona rushed forward, her brilliant golden feline eyes glowing with rage. "Get off him, you son of a bitch!" she shouted. She struck the mutant with the butt of her rifle. It relented for a moment from attacking Raptor. She responded by kicking the insect square in the chest with her armored boot, sending it spiraling off from Raptor. It landed on the ground, on its back, much like Raptor. Riona did not stop there. She stomped on its neck, preventing it from moving. In one quick succession, she shoved the muzzle of her rifle into its vulnerable, bulbous eyes and pulled the trigger point blank, finally ending it for good. Target down. The threat had been finally dealt with. Raptor held his wound, trying to keep the blood from seeping out entirely from his wound. "Medic, get over here," she shouted. The medic rushed over as Riona started applying a tourniquet to the base of his leg. "We got you, kid. You're okay," Riona softly reassured him as the medic worked on getting his wound taken care of. Raptor gritted his teeth and cried out as the medic worked on stitching the gaping wound closed. I know. It will be finished soon." Riona continued to reassure him as the medic finally stitched the wound closed and began cleaning and dressing the wound. Yankee walked over as the medic finished. "How is he?" he asked. "He's stable, but we need to get him back to the outpost. I think we should cut the patrol short," the medic said as he packed away his medical gear. Yankee nodded in agreement and tapped his bowman headset. "Yankee to Sentry, how copy?" The same static-filled voice chimed in over the radio. "Loud and clear, Yankee. Give me a sit rep, over." "Mutant has been killed. Break. Raptor has been hit. He's stable, but Chrome advises we bring him back. Permission to RTB, over." "Solid copy, Yankee. Stand by." Yankee looked over at Riona and shrugged. Riona returned the shrug. They waited for a few minutes. The voice on the radio eventually returned. "Sentry to Yankee. Permission granted. RTB, over." "We'll go, Sentry. Yankee out." Riona and Chrome both nodded as they helped Raptor to his feet. Another one of the PMCs finished bagging the mutated insect. The two helped Raptor walk as he had one arm around each of them. "Easy does it, man," the medic said as he helped Raptor limp back to the Humvees. The rest of the squad followed, forming a protective formation around the trio as they made their way out of the woods. Chrome eased Raptor into his seat as the rest of the convoy mounted up and headed back to their outpost. Outpost 12. The Humvees rolled past the checkpoint into the motor pool. The outpost medical staff took in Raptor as Yankee signed in the 2 Humvees. She sighed as she looked over some of her half-finished projects. She walked up the stairs to her room. She peeled away her gear and equipment. The Wayfinder stored her weapons and armor in her locker. Riona sighed in relief as she took off her armored boots and changed into some more comfortable footwear. The young woman put in her earbuds, tuning into a podcast as she was halfway through from before. Making her way back down to her workshop, she untied her hair. She really needed a shower after everything today, although today was pretty tame for what she'd normally experience. Such is the life for a Wayfinder like Riona. And that was Chapter 1 of Angel's Tale. This took a bit longer than I wanted, but I apologize. Honestly, things have been really busy, and I just got into med school. So, yeah. Anyways, good night, listeners. Good night.